I have a very distinct memory of meeting Spencer for the first time the year that my book Arrow to the Sun received the Caldecott Medal. Spencer was the chairman of the committee that year, and we had a dinner to celebrate. He held up a copy of the book to a particular page. Spencer read the line, "The boy became the arrow." And then he looked at me and he said, "How did you do that?" And I knew at that moment that we were connected on an arc of story, and this was an arc that was to extend over the next 35 years.
We became friends, I'd like to say, in an unusual short amount of time. It felt like I had known him for a very long time. We connected on two levels. First was his love of words. He absolutely loved words, and we talked about them and the power of words to do good things, but also to be used for negative things as well. And we said words are far too beautiful to be used negatively.
I came to Seattle just to take Spencer's storytelling class. He had such eloquence and grace and maturity, and yet he could impart what it meant to give a sense of wonder to children. You could often hear a pin drop in the class, not because he was just telling a story, but because of the way he spoke.
I loved talking to him. It was relaxing, comforting. It was really wonderful. He was a wonderful man, wonderful, wonderful man. It was a beautiful sense of humor.
When I graduated from the library school at the University of Wisconsin, I was appointed a branch manager of a public library in Hartford, Connecticut. I came in June, and in September we were going to have our first storytelling. So I said to my assistant librarian, Julia Moriarty, "Julia, do you want me to take storytelling, or do you want to take it?" And she said, "No, why don't you take it?" Well, I hadn't done it before in a professional capacity. The first story went over all right. But on the second story, I bombed. And when I finished the story, one young man said, I was telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And he said, "Hey, man." I said, "Yes. That ain't the way it was in the movies. You didn't name the dwarfs." So that was my first experience, but I learned many things. I learned you start where you find the students or your listeners, not where you expect them to be. You guide them to where you like them to respond. You also note that children, once you're able to establish rapport, will give you another chance.
We need to think of resources for youth in three different ways. And one is a mirror, one is a window, and one is a door. As a mirror, this was completely lacking for children of color for many, many years. They could not see themselves in a library. They would go in and hunt for books that told stories about children like they were. And until the 60s and 70s, there were almost none of those in any mainstream culture. There were some small publishers publishing these kind of books, but they didn't make their ways into the big libraries or the neighborhood libraries even. And of course, for many years, the children weren't even able to go into those libraries. For Spencer Shaw to come in and be sure that all children had mirrors and windows and doors, not just children of Euro-American background, was hugely important and had an enormous impact and has enriched literature because there are so many different aspects from different cultures that we didn't have before, and now all children have access to those.
One of the things that to me are very important is Spencer's respect and curiosity about other cultures. The fact that Spencer was in the school and got to know students of color and continue helping them, helped them stay in the program. Now, there are some who would have stayed anyway, but I can think about several examples of students that I'm not sure would have stayed if they didn't have this contact with Spencer and the support and encouragement that he gave them.
Spencer becoming a public librarian in 1941 in Connecticut was truly amazing. My mother-in-law was a librarian in Louisiana, and the libraries were not desegregated then. And it took many more years, almost 20, for libraries in Louisiana to become desegregated. So if it weren't for Spencer, my mother-in-law wouldn't have been a librarian, I wouldn't have been a librarian. He paved the way for so many of us to be able to take those steps and to go into public places that were once reserved for not us and make it a place that we could come and learn and grow and share our stories. So truly impactful.
I think that he'll be remembered as a master professor. A Professor Emeritus, who studied his area, who was a craftsman about it. We'll all always pay homage to Spencer Shaw and the contributions he's made.
You know, once you share a story, it's not really yours anymore. So somebody takes a little piece of it and then carries it on. And hopefully that's what people will do with Spencer's career, is take a little bit and carry the load and continue on. He'd be glad for us to continue to share his tales.